Welcome, 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 everybody. We're going to get started in just a minute here. So in just a moment, we'll be getting started with our webinar today, which is co-hosted by the Consortium of Appalachian Fire Managers and Scientists and the North Atlantic Fire Science Exchange. We're excited to be joined today by three awesome people from the from Penn State. We're going to be learning today about demand for prescribed fire on private lands in the Mid-Atlantic region of the US. So we'll be getting started in just a moment. We'll let everyone's audio tune in. If you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourselves in the chat. We'd love to see who you are and where you are zooming in from today. We have someone from Oregon. Martha's Vineyard. West Virginia National Park Service. Florida. Wow. Getting folks from all over. California Fire Science Consortium. Woohoo. New Jersey. Quebec City, welcome. Bienvenue. U.S. Fish and Wildlife in West Virginia. Virginia Tech. Another Floridian. Hooray. Welcome. Welcome, Sam from West Virginia. Welcome, Great Basin Fire Science Exchange. Georgia. Oh, but back in Pennsylvania. Welcome. This is going to be a great conversation today. Another Georgia, Pennsylvania person. Missouri. Wow. State College, Pennsylvania. New Hampshire. New Jersey. So far we have some Mid-Atlantic, some from other parts of the Northeast, some folks from other parts of the US, and a really nice mix of agencies, organizations, academics, business, folks that are interested in prescribed fire on private lands for a variety of reasons. So please feel free to keep those introductions coming in the chat. But without further ado, I would like to hand this off to Melissa and Jesse to provide some background on this project. And we have a really great presentation coming from Arun. So, and we have a couple of little announcements in the chat. Keep an eye on those as well. But thank you so much for joining. So Melissa, did you want to hand it straight to Jesse?
Yes, that's Jesse.
All right, Jesse, you're up.
All right, let me get off a little bit. So this is very exciting. Looking at the chat, it's really great that there's people from all over. So like you said, this will make for some really interesting conversation. So my name is Jesse Cry. I'm a professor in a forestry program at Penn State University. I work in fire and natural resource management. And so I've been at Penn State for about 5 years now. And over the last, for those of you who aren't familiar with Pennsylvania, which there's a lot of you from around the country, we had some prescribed burn laws passed in Pennsylvania in 2009 that really helped ramped up prescribed fire use in Pennsylvania that largely was very minor in land management prior to 2009. So we've really ramped up in burning, but majority of that burning is being conducted on agency property. Largely we have the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. We have a game commission that has game lands here. And of course we have the Allegheny National Forest. But there's been very little burning being conducted on private lands, even though most of our forests in Pennsylvania are privately owned. And so when I got here, that's one thing I wanted to really start to look at. I do teaching and research, but also extension, and wanted to consider private landowners as part of my stakeholders and extension audience. So, and starting to look at some of the education background and barriers and issues regarding burning on private lands, the first thing I was really interested in was there really much demand for burning on private lands in Pennsylvania where prescribed fire has largely not been used as a land management tool? And so that really segued into the work that I've been doing with Melissa, and Arun's been really pivotal with this particular research that he's going to talk about today. So that's kind of how I got interested in the project that we're going to discuss today. And with that, I will turn it over to Melissa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Cry, and I am an assistant professor of forest resources management in the Department of Ecosystem Science and Management in the forestry program. And Jesse and I are in the same program. So he is the fire ecologist manager professional, and I am the social science economics person in forestry. So it's a really great match to kind of explore the potential of prescribed fire in this region and look at it from a number of directions. Namely, the economic lens is really important for understanding if there can be the potential for a prescribed fire economy in this region. And then also look at potential for cultivating cultural values and living with fire, as something that we could move forward in forest management. So Arun is the PhD student working on this research, and he's gotten his funding from the Joint Fire Science program to do this work. And now we've actually secured more funding from JFSP to support him in a postdoc to do similar stuff, not this exact same study, but something relatively similar in California starting this summer. So we're very excited to see folks from all over the country. And if you are from the West and something in this talk resonates with you, we would love to hear from you. Of course, we can do it, after this presentation because we only have this hour. But anyway, so it's exciting that we get to showcase kind of our approach to doing this research. So I think that's all the points I wanted to make. So I'm going to let Arun take it from there. So, and introduce yourself, Arun, if you want.
All right, thank you, Melissa and Jesse. And you covered a lot of the things that I'm going to talk. The overview of the study that we did. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. I'm Arun Regmi. I'm a PhD student doing my PhD in forest resources. So I've been in Penn State for 4 years. This is my final year, and I will be soon graduating this summer. So, and I would like to thank Amanda Helen for organizing this and giving us opportunity to disseminate our research finding to you all, a larger audience. And I work lots of social science and economic stuff. That's it's more related to Melissa, and she's my major advisor now and helping. And thank you so much to Melissa and JC providing this opportunity to work on this amazing research project. So yeah, and with that, I would like to start the presentations. And yeah, here is a general overview of attendees who register for this event. We found like most of them are land manager. 42% we have today is land manager, other category 23%, and private forest landowner only 4%, and scientist 21%. And we also asked how familiar they are with the laws and regulations, and most of them seems pretty much familiar with regulations. Only 24% seems a little bit unfamiliar with prescribed fire laws and regulation. So this is just the overview of attendees who registered for this event. Yeah, talking about fire, this is one of the oldest management tool. Our ancestor has been using this tool for centuries for a variety of management goals. But now we are living in the age of Anthropocene, where human are primary driver of causing several problems. Human-induced climate change has increased the risk of severe wildfire. And on top of that, decade of fire suppression also changed the structure and composition of fire-dependent forest ecosystems in the United States and all over the world. So realizing the negative impact of this fire suppression and Anthropocene, now researcher has increased interest in restoring fire on landscape to build fire resilient ecosystems. So that support to regain those already lost most of the fire-dependent ecosystems in this region. And so prescribed fire is a means to get those benefit back and on track. So this help to reduce the risk of wildfire by reducing fuel load, and also help to regenerate several fire-dependent tree species. Oak is one of the important example here, and also help to manage wildlife habitat. So these are the benefit we have. So our focus area is in mid-Atlantic region. So in this region, prescribed fire is not common as in southeastern United States and western United States. There you can see on the pie chart, most of the burning in United States has been conducted in southeastern United, 64%, and 33% on the western United States. If you look at the figure on northeastern, it's only 3%. But in recent decades, the trend of burning is increasing. But the problem is it mostly occur on public lands in these regions by several federal and state agencies, some NGOs, INGOs like Nature Conservancy, and few consultants has been involved in burning in this region. So we conducted this research in 4 states in the Mid-Atlantic region, New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. So we thought if we do this regional research so that we can capture a wide variety of landowner perceptions, so we can learn what people think in different geological regions and different political context, social context, so we can come up with better strategy to promote prescribed fire in this region. So when we look at the political context, the legal scenario that started prescribed burn in this region, Virginia is way ahead than the New York, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. But Virginia has several codes that allow to put fire on the private land or public lands, but they don't have like a specific burning act. In Pennsylvania, you see Pennsylvania Prescribed Burning Act enacted in 2009. That has put together everything that needed to conduct burning on the landscape. And same thing applied for the Maryland and New York. And all these Maryland, New York, and Pennsylvania started enacting legal document to allow prescribed burning and around 2010 and 9. But Virginia was started it earlier than these 3 states. And in addition to political context, geologically, these 4 states are different, and in socially, these 4 states are different. So we are trying to capture all that variation in this study as well. So when we look at the ownership, that's the biggest thing here. Most of the forests are owned by private landowner, but we have seen prescribed fire has rarely occurred on private lands. So it's only conducting on public lands, and they have limited resources, and also burn standards are also limiting. And another is wildfire is not a common thing here like we have in Western United States and the Southeastern United States. So in such case where fire is not a big problem, how does society want to live with fire? What benefit they want? What would be their preferences to live with prescribed for fire? And so there is important information gap around about the private landowner interest, their preference of using prescribed fire, what kind of benefit they want if from using prescribed fire. So we need to understand what their intention and what are the key barrier that is limiting private landowner using prescribed fire as a management tool in this region. So we set up 3 objectives that I will talk each of the key findings of each objective separately here. And so first, this study will look at landowner perspectives of prescribed fire. That include understanding their knowledge and experience of prescribed fire, and their risk perception of prescribed fire, and trust in prescribed fire implementers. And the next is to understand the demand. That's the economic value of prescribed burning in this region. That involves estimating their willingness to pay for different prescribed burning benefits and preferences, and also to identify what are the factors that affect their willingness to pay for different prescribed fire programs. And finally, we will look at the spatial variation of landowner perspectives, because we know there are certain places where landowners have either positive or negative attitude toward prescribed burning. So we will see the regional variation using hotspot mapping. So as a research approach, we use a regional survey that was conducted back in late 2021 and early 2022 across this region. And most of the information we collected in the survey was about landowner characteristics. And we use psychometric Likert scale statement questions to understand their knowledge, risk, and trust factors, and we use choice experiment approach to understand their willingness to pay. So here's a little bit of overview of the choice experiment. So this is standard non-market valuation methods. When it comes to non-market valuation, there are certain environmental goods and services that we cannot trade in the existing market system. But we put value on them. We have certain value on those benefits, but we cannot see that in the market system. In such cases, we use some kind of a method, standard non-market valuation method that help to get some information from landowner, either using their spending behavior, that's called the rebuild preferences, or asking them how much they would be willing to exchange that benefit with their income level. So here we use the choice experiment. This is stated preference. We ask people to state their willingness to pay for certain prescribed fire benefits, and we will understand their preference as well as their willingness to pay for certain benefits that they get from prescribed fire. So the basic premises here is that landowner receive utility. That's utility is economic terms, but in other words, it's a benefit that's associated with prescribed fire. And theoretically, landowner make several rational choices that maximize their utility, their benefits, which is subject to their income level. And that utility is a function of wide range of prescribed fire attributes and their social characteristics, their demographic factors. And here are some factors and levels that used in the choice experiment. So the choice experiment comes up with the combination of factor and level, and we use factorial design to come up with different choice scenario. And then we present that choice scenario to a respondent, and we ask them whether they accept the scenario or reject the scenario. And we came up with all these factors and level we identified through the preliminary survey and focus group discussion. There are the factors included: ecological benefits, management benefits, support that require for landowner, and some institutional barrier that limit the use of prescribed fire on private land, and the cost of burning. And so in total, we created 16 scenarios, including those factors and labels that I showed earlier. And each respondent could answer 8 randomly assigned questions. So here's an example of questions, also known as programs. In the narrative form, the first programs we design that is a low-cost management tool that help to promote oak regenerations, and also in participating in this program would have reduced legal liability in the event of escape fire. And the cost of burning would be around $20 per acre. So we asked them whether they would like to enroll in this program or they would reject to enroll in these programs. So this is how we set off 16 programs, and we sent 8 programs to each individual landowner respondent. And then we received that information, and then we put this in the model to look at their utility and their preferences. To collect the data, this after designing the final survey, this was distributed using mixed mode of delivery. We use both paper mailing and a post-to-web method. So the post-to-web methods involve sending a postcard invitation that include a survey web link which respondent can use to assess the survey, or they can also request paper copy of that. And in total, we sent 2,051 survey invitations. Out of that, we received 430 usable responses, which is 25% response rate. And to analyze the data, we use mixed logistic regression to fit their choices with respect to different attributes and factors and their sociodemographic factors. And to look at the spatial variations, we use ArcGIS and look at the hotspot mapping. Here is the overview of respondent characteristics. Most of the respondents were male, and they were 45 years age or older. And 78% had at least bachelor degree in education, and most of them had an annual income level over $80,000. And more than half of the respondents own 100 acres in forest, or more than that. And about 60% respondents were a member of an association, any landowner associations. And about half of the respondents received financial or technical assistance in the past. So talking about the key findings, the first objective, we looked at the landowner perspective of prescribed fire. So we found the topmost management goal that they want to achieve from their properties to enhance wildlife populations, family recreation activities, and aesthetic and seclusion, whereas timber production is top 4, is in the 4th place. So looking at this, the cultural values are more centered around stewardship and family goals, and then more about the timber production. And when we look at the top management activities, it's more, they have more like stand improvement, forest health, control invasive plant species, and harvesting and timber sale is around 3rd top management activities. So looking at this ecosystem managed for multiple use, they want to manage their forest for multiple use, not just for timber or income generation. And so in general, the knowledge level was pretty low across the region. This is the overall result across the region, not the state-wise. We found limited knowledge in 1 to 5 point Likert scales. The knowledge score is below average, but the risk perception was also low. That's a good thing, because they don't see prescribed fire as risky, but the only problem we have here is a low level of knowledge. And when we look at the trust, they pretty much have good trust, good level of trust in prescribed fire implementers. So low risk perceptions and high trust, so favorable social condition to promote prescribed fire in Mid-Atlantic region. But the limited knowledge indicates the need for strategic education and outreach programs to build landowner knowledge so that we can promote prescribed fire use across this region. And when looking at the statewide landowner perspective, you can see New York has very low level of knowledge, high risk, and low trust compared to other states. So Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, they don't have like significant difference in terms of risk, trust, and knowledge, although Virginia has little bit higher knowledge, low risk, and high trust level. And prescribed fire use seems pretty low in this region. Only 14% have used prescribed fire in the past, and they have mostly used this in a small area, mainly to manage warm season grasses for wildlife habitat management. And this is the regional data, not just for one state. And this shows lack of foundational experience with burning. That could be the reason. And when we look at the regional data, it's significantly different across the states. You see the percent respondents that have used prescribed fire in the past is below 5% in New York. It says they have rarely burned in the past, and about 10% in Maryland, and 20% in Pennsylvania, and above 30% in Virginia. So it makes sense because in Virginia, they have high level of educations and low risk perception, high trust in prescribed fire implementers, and this is more represented by their level of experience of using prescribed fire in the past. All right, so we have a group poll here. So in your experience, where do landowners typically get their information about prescribed fire? So you might be seeing the poll on there. Yeah.
Yes, and for our for anyone who's a co-host, don't click any buttons. I know it's tempting, but
Yeah.
we won't click any buttons. So I can see the responses coming in, and so far about a quarter of the people have participated. We'll let this go for maybe another 15 seconds. Thanks so much for everybody in completing this poll. I'll wait till a majority of folks have responded. Ooh, some interesting responses coming in. Let's see, about 60% have participated so far. I'm going to give a little countdown. Maybe we'll give folks another 10 seconds or so. And we'll be closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending the poll and sharing results. So it appears what we see here, about 54% look at the internet for information about prescribed fire. Luckily, one of the next highest categories was fire managers and scientists. But it's also interesting to note that over a third also look to family and friends. It's interesting to see extension as a popular response. Private land associations are also good. Trade magazines was not a popular response, and then was another response. So thank you. Arun, back to you.
Yeah, this is amazing. Like we set up this poll to look at match and mismatch between different audience, because we conducted this research to understand landowner perspectives. Now we saw in this webinar, we have more educators, scientists, land managers than private landowners. So yeah, when I compare this information with what we receive in our surveys, like completely shocking, right? So a landowner said they receive information mostly from trade magazines, but we have 0% who actually got information from exchange of magazines. So next is internet, which is consistent with our findings. So this shows landowners have more access to magazines, trade magazines, where they get information about prescribed burn and how that they can improve their knowledge more than extension, news media, fire manager, and scientists. So we can clearly see there's a variations in the source of knowledge where a different audience get information from about prescribed burning. This is so helpful. Yeah, thank you so much for participating in this poll. Okay. And moving into the next key findings about the demand for prescribed fire, which estimate landowner willingness to pay for different prescribed fire programs. And yes, here is the result. So this is statewide result. Overall, pretty much good demand for prescribed fire. About 64% were interested to enroll in at least one program out of 16 programs we presented to them. And when we look at statewide, you see most landowner from Virginia, about 76% were interested to enroll in the program, followed by Pennsylvania, Maryland, and very least about 53% landowner from New York were interested to enroll in the program. But overall, we can see there's a huge support for prescribed interest in using prescribed fire as a management tool in this region, but the demand vary across state boundary. And so we also asked landowner why they rejected. Those who rejected programs, we asked them why they rejected the program using 1 to 5 Likert scale statements, and we found liability concern and cost was the biggest barrier for them selecting any of the programs. You can see the mean of 1 to 5 is about 3, more than 3 in liability concern and more than 3 in cost of burning. And so with respect to different cost level, we had 4 different cost level in the prescribed fire programs, starting $20 to $200. And we looked at most of the respondents selected the low cost programs, and their acceptance rate decreased with increase in the cost of burning, but still we have significant portion of respondents selected interested in enrolling in the program that cost $200 per acre, about 22%. And after modeling, we found Virginia and Pennsylvania had significant impact in willingness to pay, but New York and Maryland was not significant in the model. So the mean willingness to pay from the modeling we found was $16 per acre. So you might be surprised why the willingness to pay is that much low. So this include mean 0 bids. Those who rejected also include in this mean willingness to pay. And this is the basis, and it vary based on what benefit we want to include in prescribed fire programs. So when we look at the willingness to pay for different states, like New York and Maryland was not significant in the model, so they have the base mean willingness to pay, but Virginia and Pennsylvania was significant in the model, and we found Virginia and Pennsylvania would like to pay additional amount on top of the mean willingness to pay. It's about $50 for Virginia and around $90 per acre for Pennsylvania. And this shows with limited knowledge and low-level experience in prescribed burning, Pennsylvania landowner want to pay more, way more than Virginia landowner. You can see this could be because they have limited knowledge and they don't know the realities, what would be the real value of benefits that Pennsylvania landowner can get from prescribed fire, whereas Virginia, they have high level of knowledge and their experience of using prescribed fire, and they know the realities of prescribed burning, and so that could have represented the real cost of burning in Virginia, whereas in Pennsylvania, if we want to know the real willingness to pay value, so then we need some kind of education program to educate landowner, and that may change their willingness to pay value. So like I said, $16 is the basis. When we use different attributes that landowner preferred the most, then the value of prescribed fire can go up or down based on the attributes we include in the programs. Here are some program attributes. Some has negative impact on their willingness to pay, and some has positive impact on the willingness to pay that offer. So the factors that has positive impact in landowner willingness to pay is forest health and resilience. That means if we include this benefit in the prescribed fire programs that we design, then their willingness to pay go additional $14 on top of what we receive is $16. That's going to be around $30. So likewise, control invasive species can add $12 additional on top of the basic willingness to pay value. And wildlife habitat around $10. State coordinations, if we provide state coordination in the prescribed fire programs, that's going to increase the value of that program by $17. And cost share can improve the value of prescribed burning by $18, and access to consultant also likely to increase the value of burning by $8. So there are two other benefits that are least preferred by prescribed private landowners. So if we focus on a specific benefit, prescribed fire benefits such as to restore rare vegetations, so they prefer this benefit less than other benefit like holistic forest management. So we have to strategically design the programs and include the programs benefits that are most preferred by private forest landowner. A similar thing with prescribed fire associations. So although this has huge role in helping landowner to implement fire on landscape, maybe landowners are not aware of the actual role, the benefit of having prescribed fire association in this region, because none of the region states in this region have prescribed fire association. That's why they are not aware of the benefits, and so they want other programs. They prefer other programs more than the prescribed fire associations, like access to consultant and state coordination. So here's a very general overview of the value of policy, how things change, how willingness to pay value change with changing benefit of the programs. For example, if we proposed prescribed fire programs that help to maintain forest health, improve forest health and resilience, and also improve wildlife habitat conditions, and that has better access to consultants, the total willingness to pay value increased by $31 per acre on top of $16, the base value. And there are certain group of people, they are more supportive in prescribed fire, using prescribed fire than others. Looking at the age that has negative impact in willingness to pay means younger are more likely to pay than the older landowner. And when we look at the annual household incomes, those who have high level of income conditions are more willing to pay for prescribed fire, and they're more interested to pay for it than the landowner having low level of incomes. And also landowner who has been already in assistance programs are more likely to pay for prescribed fire and has biggest impact in willingness to pay. You can see $55 per acre increased in willingness to pay if we focus on the landowner who has past experience of being in assistance program. So this shows we found some early adopters who has more support in prescribed fire. And if we design some programs that focus specifically target and this group of people, then we can get success in the prescribed fire program. So another group what we have here, based on your experience, which of these factors do you think is most important.
All right, so we will give folks a moment to read through the question and respond. But yeah, thank you so much for this, Arun. This is really fascinating to understand motivations and behind willingness to pay factors. So we'll give people a little bit of time to respond. Actually, while they're doing that, we did have a question, Arun, that came in the chat. I was going to save it for later, but George asks, was there any discussion about funding sources with property owners?
Funding sources for the property owner with the private landowner, we did not ask specifically what kind of funding sources they have. But when we asked them what kind of previous cost share program they have been using, we asked them particularly 2 programs if they have enrolled in the programs. It's about the equip programs and equip. Those are the programs that are mostly enrolled in this area. Other than that, we did not ask specifically the funding source.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, that'll be a great, I think, discussion point later when we talk about what do we do with this research that you've been doing. I think we have a good number of responses in, so I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1, ending poll and sharing results. So based on your experience, which of these factors do you think is most important for restoring fire adapted ecosystems? And people were only allowed to choose one. Most chose restoring wildlife habitat as their primary factor. But there was a pretty even split between some of the others, offering cost share support to landowners, increasing the number of prescribed fire consultants or burn bosses. We have a little bit of bias, I think, in this audience. Controlling invasive plants was another popular answer, and then there were a few others. So I'm going to stop sharing, but that's what we got from this poll. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, looking at the factor we received, it's kind of more consistent. Like even we found the result where landowner said they want to manage wildlife habitat, and which is consistent with the poll result we have here right now. And controlling invasive species and other important factors that we receive. And another important is offering cost share. So here we have more match than mismatch in the opinions between private forest landowner and the other audience with the scientists and land managers. So this is great. Thank you so much for participating in this result. So moving into the final findings about the spatial variations, like we found there is variations in the landowner knowledge, risk, and trust across the regions in earlier, but we did not know where actually that variation exists. So we can use GIS tool to understand that the specific location that we can locate the cluster, significant cluster of landowner having more positive or negative views to our prescribed fire. When we look at the hotspot mapping of knowledge and experience, we found the several counties with the cold spot around central New York and some of the counties in northeastern Pennsylvania. So these blue coated counties indicate that most of the landowner in this region have low level of knowledge, and this is surrounded by the counties having similar low level of knowledge. Means this is the cluster of low level of knowledge in 1 to 5 scale, probably a 1 or 2 who generally have less knowledge in this region. On the other hand, we see here the reddish color counties that represent the cluster of high level of knowledge, and the counties surrounded by the landowner who frequently say they are more knowledgeable about prescribed fire and they have experience of using prescribed fire, which is consistent with the preliminary result we got in the perspectives. So another factor we have is trust in prescribed fire implementers. Here you can see This is more like similar to knowledge and experience, but we have more counties in cold spot in the trust, and it's almost all over the New York and few counties in northeastern Pennsylvania. So, but the hot spot has shifted towards the east of the Virginia and some counties in Maryland. So there is a little bit of different in knowledge and trust, hot and cold spot, but overall trend is similar. We have landowners who has little bit less trust in prescribed fire implementers in the northern gradient, and more trust in prescribed fire implementers in the southern gradient. So another factor we looked at is perception of risk of prescribed fire. So this is more the few counties has been identified as a hotspot. So here you can see risk, the higher the risk is undesirable. So here we see in New York, we have hotspot, means this is the concentration of landowners having high level of risk perception compared to the landowner from Southern Virginia who has low level of risk. So looking at knowledge, trust, and risk, we identified the area that has more and generally negative attitude toward prescribed fire, negative view toward prescribed fire is mostly from New York region and some of the counties from northeastern Pennsylvania. And likewise, we found the zone, hotspot zone, and the zone with the positive view toward prescribed fire around most of the counties in Virginia and few counties in Maryland. And the another factor we looked at is willingness to pay choices. This is based on whether they accepted or rejected the program. So here you can see the cold spot is similar to what we receive in knowledge and experience, and also the hot spot is all over the Virginia. So we have the landowner who frequently accepted the program in Southern Virginia and who frequently rejected the program in New York, central New York, and some of the counties in northeastern Pennsylvania. And after that, we converted that responses and we came up with the another hotspot mapping, look at the amount they are willing to pay. These two are different. The first one is acceptance or rejection of the program. The second one is the willingness to pay value that we receive after fitting the model. So here you can see the hot spot, cold spot change. The cold spot is still in New York, lots of the county in the New York, but hot spot is now in Pennsylvania. In earlier slide, if you remember, willingness to pay for Pennsylvania landowner is $90 per acre compared to the Virginia. That could be the reason. We have the hot spot here in Pennsylvania. So we can focus our resources because Pennsylvania landowner has great interest in using prescribed fire, because the only thing we have here limiting is the knowledge. If we provide some kind of knowledge outreach activities, we can give them the real scenario, real benefit of prescribed fire, and we can promote prescribed fire in this region. So the range of each, this is the willingness to pay is per county. The range is from $34 to $136. So the blue represent lowest around like less than $50, the concentration of low values, and the high is above $100, the concentration of high values. So overall, looking at the landowner opinions and values toward prescribed fire, that vary significantly across the region with general north and south gradient. And here another group polls. So does the north-south gradient in WTP mirror the distribution of fire-adapted ecosystems? What do you think about it?
All right, great question. Well, we'll give folks just about a minute to respond, and we'll see if you see this north-south gradient in your experience. So yes,
We
sort
have
of, or
one
no.
response. Two response, 25%. Good, great.
And I do see some great questions coming in the chat. And Melissa, thank you for all your responses so far. The last question we might save for the Q&A, which will be coming up in just a few minutes. But these are all great. And I really love that this research that you've been doing is stimulating all these thoughts and ideas and questions. So let's see, we'll give folks another maybe 10 seconds to complete the poll. I'll do a countdown in just a few. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ending poll. Sharing results. So does the north-south gradient in willingness to pay mirror the distribution of fire-adapted ecosystems? And the majority of folks said sort of, but there are gaps. But another 25% said yes, the value of fire is consistent with where fire-adapted ecosystems are. But 17% said no, it's not consistent. So very interesting.
Yeah, this is a great topic to discuss. This is great findings. Yeah, we can discuss on this result after we finish this talk. And yeah, thank you so much for your response. And here are some takeaways from the these presentations. And overall, we saw great potential for the use of prescribed fire on private lands in the Mid-Atlantic region, as we found many landowners expressed strong support for burning. About 64% were willing to enroll in the prescribed fire program that provide different benefits to them. And as we found, main motive to use prescribed fire is more to restore ecosystem health rather than getting some specific forest management goals, like as restore, for example, restoring oak regeneration or restoring rare vegetation, rather than focusing on a specific goal. They want some program that help to get the holistic management objectives out of the prescribed fire implementation. And when we look at the regional scale, their opinions were spatially clustered and varied across the state boundaries and ecoregions. Landowner from more northern side had more negative view toward prescribed fire, whereas the landowner from more southern side of the study area had more positive view toward prescribed fires. So overall, education, technical support, financial assistance, and access to a qualified professional will be important for helping landowner to use prescribed fire to achieve important management objectives. So education is key factors here to help them to promote prescribed fire on private land. And here are the final group questions for the discussions. And yes, so we can start.
Bravo. Well, thank you so much, Arun. I think if Melissa and Jesse are willing to also turn on your cameras, we have just a few minutes left, and for some of us, we're going to be sticking around for a special brown bag session after this. But in the remaining minutes that we have, Melissa did a great job of answering questions on the fly, but one kind of stuck out. So Henry was asking, what is the interest in prescribed fire and willingness to pay? Why is the interest so much higher in Pennsylvania? Do the landowners in the survey have higher income than other states? What's so different in Pennsylvania than New York and Maryland? And also any theories on why we're not seeing the same in Maryland or New York? So this is great discussion. I can see Melissa smiling. I don't know, Melissa, if you want to jump in, or if Arun, if you want to take a first guess.
That's part of why we're bringing this research to have these conversations, because it was a surprising result for us as well. And I'll let you talk a little bit, Arun, if you have thoughts.
Yeah, the main, I think, like I said, that could be the education, because they have great, because Pennsylvania recently adopted the Prescribed Burning Act, and they are in a kind of transitional phase where they don't know much about prescribed fire, but they want to adopt prescribed fire as a management tool. And they don't know the exact value of burning and different benefit. That could be the reason. It's a benefit of doubt, I would say. Maybe that's the reason. So when we look at the Virginia, they have kind of more established burning system, and they know the realities of burning, and also they have resources out there. They have many consultants. That could be the reason they know the exact benefit or the exact cost of burning. But here at Penn State, in Pennsylvania, we don't have enough consultants who conduct burning. When we did focus group discussion, we knew way big range of burning, like from $20 to $400. Some said, okay, if the per acre burning would be $400, and some said it would be around $20. So there is very large variation in the range of burning in there. Yeah, I would say there is not like a well-established environment of burning in this region, and they are constantly learning it. In future, this kind of result, this kind of research can help them to understand, okay, what's going on here in Pennsylvania, and what would the real scenarios, and what is the real cost of burning that we might think about, and that might change it. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say some of the managers on public lands have noticed that burning is not a solution. It's not a fix-all. So there's still invasive species challenges, and it has to be a tool that's integrated within a plan. And it's also one that you have to use adaptive management techniques in order to maybe move in a forward direction, whatever the management goals are, because these systems haven't seen fire in a while. And now we've got these other factors at play, climate change and invasive species, that make it difficult to predict success. So I think when landowners start using fire, they're going to start realizing like it works really well for some things and maybe not so well for other things. So this bubble, it may be a value bubble or something. And when they start becoming more familiar with fire, there's going to be people that stick with it, and some might eventually back down. But I would say this is a signal of being fire curious. So, that this is the chance to leap onto that for sure.
Yeah, I thought those results were really striking too, and interesting when Arun started providing them. And, I'm a fire ecologist, a fire scientist, and Melissa and Arun are economists, but I would sometimes just think about, well, I kind of remember the whole supply demand thing. Like there's a lot of people that have been starting to burn on public lands here over the last 10 years or so, and private landowners are seeing that. There's clearly a high demand, but there's no supply of consultants. I mean, we clearly have workforce development to do, and this really shows that we're ripe for workforce development. We have high demand. We have very few consultants that burn in Pennsylvania because of some other barriers that we could discuss, but that might be, part of it too. But when I look at that map and I think about, hey, if you're a private consultant and you're looking to go get some burning done and get some, biggest bang for your buck per acres of burning, that map I would hand to someone and say, hey, Pennsylvania looks pretty ripe for doing some work right now. But it's very interesting.
I'll answer the question about controlling for other kind of factors that may explain why the value is predicted to be higher in Pennsylvania. So the statistical analysis does control for the influence of age and income, and the sampling was also done in a way to ensure that there was a representative sample across states, and looking to make sure that there was oversampling of larger landowners, but that was across all states, and oversampling of landowners already engaged in active forest management through an association by being represented through being part of the community through a landowners association or professional association. So so we did look for forms of bias and tried to control them as much as possible. And the statistical analysis also controls for that as well.
Awesome, thank you. I'm afraid we are almost out of time. So please, everyone, join me in a virtual round of applause for our presenters today. Arun, awesome job. Best of luck with the defense. I know you have a lot on your plate.
Yeah,
email us your answers to these questions. We're happy to,
Yeah,
learn more.
so if Melissa, Jesse, and Arun are willing to drop your emails into the chat, that would be very helpful. The session is being recorded and it will be shared, I believe, through the CAFM's YouTube channel in a little while. Take us a little while to get it all up online, but we will definitely share it. We're hoping that this webinar will be the start of many discussions to come. Social science, especially in fire management and fire science, is extremely valuable. So we really appreciate all the work that you, our presenters, have done. We really appreciate everyone's time here in being part of this initial webinar discussion, and we hope that you'll continue to engage with our presenters, with each other, and join us for some continued discussions. So with that, I will formally conclude. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Thanks again to our presenters. We can stop recording.